Hey there, Lionesses. This is Bobby Carlton. I am the publisher and editor-in-chief of Lioness magazine for the female entrepreneur. I'm also the founder of Innovation Women, which is an online speaker bureau specifically for women. And today we are talking with Katerina Axelsson. She is the founder of Tastry. I almost said you were the foundry of Tastry. And Tastry is basically a way to taste and score wine using technology. So, Katerina, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Bobby. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you told me a story when we talked before. It was the I'm working my way through college story because your startups. Tell me your startup story, basically.
Sure. So happy to. So I didn't start this company intentionally. I didn't go out and say, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to run a business. What happened was I went to Cal Poly University. I was studying chemistry and I paid my way through college by working in the wine industry, various roles in the wine industry, oftentimes in the lab, right? Because we're in the central coast of California and we have 400 wineries here and I forgot, like 20-mile radius, something like that. And so I worked at these jobs a lot. And at a lot of these jobs, I had the freedom to run my own experiments in the lab and act like a mad scientist. And of course, after work hours. And that was exciting to me. So I took full advantage of that, focused on that even more than college at some point, and just tinkered away. And at the same time, I'm getting to know the wine industry. I'm young and ambitious at the time and learning about the idiosyncrasies of this particular industry and trying to solve those problems, if that makes sense. So like, for example, before Tastry, I had come up with this invention. It was like a contraption that you would put in a barrel and it would use 35% less sulfur, but it would match the oxygen concentration gradient of the wine and make a better quality wine with less sulfur, like little things like that. And so, long story short, Tastry was one of the inventions that came out of my experiments. And the inspiration came to me because I noticed that it wasn't very data driven and there was a lot of intuition involved, and that would be okay if 85% of products like this didn't fail before they hit the market, and it's a multi-year, multi-million-dollar investment. So I thought, I'm going to objectify this with data, and the answer is in the chemistry. So like one example is we had a multi-million-dollar batch of wine, and we would put that wine under two different labels. And so the same product, different appearance, it would go out in the market and it would be scored differently and priced differently. So as a consumer, you could be paying, 50% more for the same product just because of the label or the marketing. Before there was ever a product, it's been a journey through science, like before this was ever a company, to be honest. And I went down this 2-year rabbit hole where I was reading research papers on sensory science and talking to, major sensory science companies and other researchers, and just trying to understand, how are people perceiving flavor? Like, what kind of science is there for making products, not just wine, but like fragrance and, coffee and people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on focus groups and it doesn't seem to be improving things. And why is that? So I had all these questions, and I'll try to do this in another minute or so, but I learned that there are fundamental problems. One is flavors are not predictable. And even if they were, consumers perceive those flavors differently because they have a different set of experiences in their life, right? They have different machinery, they have grown up on different diets, the thing. But the good news is actually the third problem, which is people's perception of certain flavors has very little, if any, relationship to whether or not they actually like the product. So I was thinking, with my limited knowledge at the time, okay, what matters is how much people like the product and are they going to buy it again. But everyone's focused on what flavors people are perceiving. So why not short circuit that process and figure out how people are going to like something by looking at the chemistry? So long story short, I invented a brand new analytical chemistry methodology that would break down the flavor matrix of sensory-based products. That's as simply as I can put it. And what it would do is it would look at the chemistry of, say, a wine or a coffee in one snapshot in the correct ratios, the same way a human would. Whereas a machine would be looking at one compound at a time and trying to quantify it. So what these companies were doing was saying, okay, I'm looking at benzaldehyde and it's supposed to taste like cherry to consumers. So I'm going to test the chemistry and then ask consumers if they taste cherry in this wine or whatever it may be. Problem is it's a hit or miss, and it's not because of that one compound. It's because there's hundreds of other compounds and different ratios interacting with each other. They're allowing the original thing to be expressed. So my method addressed those problems, simply put. And I took it to this database, to the head of the master's program in computer science and mathematics. And he was only supposed to talk to me for an hour, but, you know, it turned into an all-day meeting, and he invited other PhDs into the room, and they started analyzing this data. And long story short, Professor Dektiar and I partnered up, and he provided the second part of the invention in the company, which was the algorithms designed to process this very complex chemistry data and relate it to humans. And that's why we say we taught a computer how to taste. And yeah, I apologize, I may have nerded out a little bit too much, but that's the story. That's what we are patented for. That's the core technology. And it applies to many, many other products beyond wine.
So tell us what Tastry is.
Yeah. So I'll put it succinctly. So Tastry, we like to say we taught a computer how to taste, because what we do is we can test the chemistry of any product you can taste or smell. And just by using that chemistry data, we can predict how consumers are going to like the product. So we're a sensory sciences company that uses chemistry to make products and recommend them.
How does it actually work?
Yeah. Okay. The succinct version. So first thing we needed was a very large database. So let's say we're just focused on the wine industry right now, right? So we needed to test the wine market with this chemistry method. I needed my own database, right? So we set up a lab using this unique method and tested the majority of the US market through this lab using my method. So now we have a picture with this superior method of the wine market. But then we needed to validate that we could use this chemistry to predict what consumers are going to like. So the first product we ever launched was a wine recommender engine. And it's pretty simple. It's just to a consumer, it's like a whimsical looking quiz, and you answer 10 or so questions about how you like black coffee, licorice, or dark chocolate. And we recommend the top products in any given store according to your palate. And the way it works on the back end is it's not a tasting note filter. When you're answering those questions, they're analogs to the underlying chemistry. So what we had to do was pour thousands of wines to thousands of people, have them blind rate the wines to, train these algorithms. But that means once we finish that process, that we didn't need a historical data set of how many products you've ever tasted to know what you're going to like. All we need now is for you to answer 10 questions that have nothing to do with wine, and we know exactly how to recommend you something that you're going to like off the bat. So we launched with this quiz. You can call it in retail. And retailers were using it to sell more wine, increase customer loyalty, that sort of thing. Got a lot of case studies out of that, right? So we proved the recommender works. So customers were scoring the products on average 45% higher. Retailers were seeing a 12% increase in sales in the wine aisle. But where it started to get interesting was when we had deployed in enough locations across the US, at least in major cities, that we can see trends in consumer palettes in the data and against the inventory. So we can see there's a direct relationship with how high the palette matches at any given store and how well they're doing in wine sales. So it was kind of a long journey, but long story short, because of that first product, we were able to repurpose that data and work directly with the wine brands themselves and help them mitigate the risk of launching a product that people are not going to like using this data.
Wow. All right. So are you replacing the sommelier? Oh my gosh.
No, it's okay. I have trouble with it too.
There's a word there. The wine experts. Are you replacing those wine experts? That's where we're going.
No, and I would argue it's complementary tool, and this is actually, I think, a big discussion in the AI industry as a whole. People are talking about, oh, are you replacing jobs or not? But the most successful AI companies I've seen are not replacing people at all. What they're doing is enhancing their current role and making it more interesting and exciting, like embedding it into the workflow and making things better. I don't see AI like this replacing people. Also, sommeliers exist.
Thank you.
I always think yay at the end, and that's what helps me pronounce it correctly.
I took French in high school. It's embarrassing.
Oh, really? It's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Sorry, took you off track there, but and I understand the whole, let's not replace people with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But for the average wine drinker, are they going to go to a tool like yours versus going to an expert?
Yeah, but it's not like they weren't doing that already, right? So as I was saying, a sommelier is great because they provide a personal experience. It's about the customer service. It's about, you enjoying the ambiance you're in when you're talking to a sommelier. They're very knowledgeable. It's very impressive. They're in, restaurants. I would say, millennials in particular who are buying more and more wine, they don't start there. They don't know where to start. They're kind of intimidated by a product like wine, and they love the digital world, and they love being catered to and having personalized offerings. And sommeliers aren't in grocery stores or on websites, which is where millennials are now buying more and more wine. I would say as they, mature and get more comfortable, with wine in general, they'd be more inclined to work with a sommelier. I also have some sommeliers who have used this, ones who are in grocery stores, because they want to, if they have a very different palate from a customer, they don't want to recommend what they like. They want to make sure that they give them a good recommendation off the bat, and then they just kind of use it as a guide, the Tastry recommender, to help them explore more wines. So it's complementary in that way. And then on the winemaking side, I think how many winemakers have used the product is a testament to how much they like it and are maybe not threatened by it, because we're taking the, how do I put it? We're solving some problems for them that they wouldn't be able to address otherwise, just because it's not possible. And it's actually helping them do more interesting work, make more interesting blends. And sometimes it helps them communicate with management that their intuition is correct. So there's things like that. Yeah.
Taking the guesswork out.
That's right.
All right. So are there things that you've learned during this whole process about wine, perhaps, that even surprised you?
I've certainly learned a lot of things about wine. I could dive into like the nuances of the wine industry, but I would just say I've learned a lot of things about running a business. Because I didn't start as an executive at a company or as a general manager or something like that. I was a chemist, and as the company grew, I I started to bring on people who were more capable than I in any role I was currently doing. I started the chemistry invention, but then I hired experts and people with master's degrees to take it over and improve on it. And then I moved on to something else and then hired people smarter than me to take over that role. And I think what I have learned in this transition from a scientist to, a CEO is culture is critical. Company culture is very important. And I know a lot of people say that. So what I would add to that is it's very, very easy to have a great company culture if you start out with the right people in the first place. It just it falls into place. And we've been fortunate to have attracted a lot of the right talent into the company. But it wasn't with big salaries, that we couldn't afford at the time, or, free food or playgrounds in the office or anything like that. You can't really bribe genius that way. I feel like we attracted the right people because they felt like they were doing something very important and critical in the company, and we were very dependent on them to do it.
So you're talking about attracting like top quality. Do you have particular strategies that you employ beyond this is the mission?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also just make a comment about the top quality talent. In my experience, I've worked with a lot of people with very impressive, prolific resumes. Like on paper, they look fantastic, but I have not seen a relationship between how impressive someone's resume is and how able they are to survive or provide value in a startup. There's a attitude component. If someone has the right attitude or personality and they're a self-starter, it doesn't really matter what they know starting out. They'll probably figure it out, if that makes sense. So that's always been important. In the early days, before I would say Tastry was not as successful as it is today, I would interview people and I would try to I would give them the spiel and, tell them, how exciting what we're doing is. But at the end of the interview, I would try to convince them to not join the company. So I would say, the pay isn't going to be great starting out. It's going to be very long hours. This is a very risky work. There's not a lot of structure right now. So maybe like this isn't for you. Like maybe you should go and get, the salary you deserve at a bigger tech company right now, that sort of thing. And just so that they knew what they were getting into, for one. But the people who were not discouraged by that ended up being the right people because they were able to, weather through the ups and downs that are natural in a very early stage company. Sounds
like your strategy was scare them off or attempt to.
The wrong people, right? Scare off the people who wouldn't have the desire to have the fortitude to go through that early stage shuffle.
When you and I were talking originally, you equated the startup journey with being a Navy SEAL.
Oh, did I? Well, yeah, what I meant by that is you fail by quitting. It's you can it's a matter of time and money, of course, but usually I would say most of the time you can iterate through a problem with sheer willpower and get to where you want to go. It's just the challenge is not getting discouraged during the process.
I think that is great advice. Actually, as we kind of come to a close today, maybe you can share some information or advice for our audience of other women entrepreneurs.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I feel like making a comment, and I hope it comes across as advice, but I would say it's really difficult for any entrepreneur, woman or not. I know people on podcasts and on interviews always talk about, oh, it was so hard to run a business in the early days. There's so many challenges. It's so hard. It's really difficult to communicate like how hard it really is. But I think there's some consolation knowing that everyone goes through that, and it can be lonely at the top. It's not like you can burden everyone with all the challenges of running a company. I don't know if that made sense, but that's it's one thing to live through. It's another thing to hear someone talk about how hard it is. Even if you're doing really well and the company's really successful and you fantasized about getting this company to a certain stage, when you get there, all you can think about is all the things that have yet to be done.
Very true.
Yeah. I hope that was inspirational and not.
Don't worry. I like the iterate through advice as well. I think that that is a very good thing to think through. So keep on growing. It's like we're the little, the little engine that could.
Yeah. Keep on going. Keep on growing.
All right, great. So today we've been talking with Katerina Axelsson. She's the founder of Tastry, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.